Let me read to you a passage from the 16th chapter of St. Luke's Gospel, verses 1 to 8. It's the Gospel for Friday of the 31st week in Ordinary Time, Year 2. St. Luke writes, Jesus told his disciples, "There was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, 'What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be manager any longer.' The manager said to himself, 'What shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I am not strong enough to dig. I am ashamed to beg. I know what I will do, so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses.' So he called in each one of his master's debtors. He asked the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' 900 gallons of olive oil,' he replied. The manager told him, 'Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 450. Then he asked the second, 'And how much do you owe?' 1,000 bushels of wheat,' he replied. He told him, 'Take your bill and make it 800. The master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of light. That's from Luke chapter 16, verses 1 to 8. And what does it suggest to us? Well, there is great talent and intelligence at work in society. In politics we see certain people skilled in debate and shrewd in their political and parliamentary tactics. One politician falls and another succeeds him. Or it could be a presidential campaign between two rival candidates. One has the advantage because the other's party has held office and has been unpopular in the process. But that disadvantaged candidate at times shows remarkable adroitness in moves he makes which nullify the advantage of the other. He maintains a neck-to-neck pace which surprises all observers. Or again, in the business world, a person rises from rags to riches because of his business shrewdness. He arrived in the country as an immigrant with few means. He made a start with a loan from relatives, and after 40 years has an extensive chain of family businesses. All recognize his intelligence. His son proves to have even more intelligence and builds his father's business into a commercial empire. But if this is all that such persons achieve in life, are they really so smart? They do not appear to take into account that at any point their life could suddenly end. And then what? What will be the real advantage to them of all their efforts and achievements? If this is all they've done, have they considered their real future, the future that follows this life? Then again, other persons gain wealth by shrewd but dishonest means. They might quietly defraud, or could be ruthless in their treatment of colleagues and underlings. Their intelligence is put to immoral use, and they gain much as a result. They may never be brought to book for what they have done, but in the long haul, what will they have achieved? Where then is their intelligence? So many of our efforts are expended for the sake of a future that is all too near and all too brief. That future might be a happy retirement. It could be for our children. All these things have a certain value, of course, but if their value is restricted to this world only, it is limited indeed. All too often, we do not ask ourselves whether the world we see is the only world, whether it is really the main world, and how suddenly we could find ourselves in the world beyond. You know, I once read an autobiography of a person who left the priesthood and who worked for the rest of his life in the teaching of philosophy. The autobiography was well written and interesting, especially in its descriptions of the departments of philosophy in the universities he was associated with. But it was a sad case of intelligence being unintelligent, especially the story of the loss of his priesthood. Those little persons who live for God and who attain sanctity are really far smarter. However, there are those who have the light but who squander it, the real light I mean. In our gospel passage today, our Lord tells the parable of a manager who received notice from his master of termination of employment. Very shrewdly, he immediately set about making friends with his master's debtors. He did so by reducing the debt of each, so that when his employment ended, he was left with many friends who perhaps willingly or from a sense of obligation set about assisting him in his new situation. And the master, when he realized what had happened, shook his head with a smile of wonderment at the shrewdness of his former employee. That employee knew how to select his goals and how to achieve them. And our Lord finishes the parable by saying that the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of light. That is to say, all too often, those who know what are the true goals in life, and who know by the gift of faith and a good religious education what should be sought in life, do not take advantage of this light that they have been given. They do not set themselves the goal to which God is calling them. And that goal is sanctity, holiness. Alternatively, they do not take the means that will bring them to their goal. The overriding goal of life is union with Christ in love, here during life, so as to be with him in love forever in heaven. This is our hope, a hope for a present good which will flower in abundant life hereafter. It is the hope of countless little and ordinary people who have the light and who act on it. Christ described himself as the light of the world. The one who follows him will not walk in the darkness, whereas the one who refuses to walk with him will indeed be in the dark. Christ is the light of men, and if we wish to avoid blindness, we must take our stand with him. Taking our stand with him, we will then study well what it means to walk with him. It means living a life of systematic spiritual life, according to the Church's teaching, being prepared to live according to that teaching, no matter what the cost. Let us then begin.